So we're going to use the Schielhau to counter these natural reactions. So when you look at the early days of Sword Carolina in HEMA, or really like most groups, when they first start trying to counter something, like, oh, okay, I'm going to counter Longpoint. And so we have the one guy doing the attack, and the other person just stands there and like lets them, lets you hit them. So I mean, and that can be fine in the early stages just to get your like gross motor stuff down. But we're assuming now that as we're doing a technique that counters something else, that doesn't mean the person stands there and takes it. So we're going from the premise that as we use the Schielhau to break Longpoint, that the person in Longpoint is reacting, but you're going to win anyway, right? That's the thought process we have. And so we're going to use the Schielhau as a feint. So when it talks about breaking the Longpoint, it actually says you're going to look in one direction and then attack somewhere else. Obviously, with the masks on, if I'm wearing a mask, it's going to be hard for me to like look at his hands, like look at his sword and like hit him in the throat, or look at his head. So it's hard to really sell that with the mask on, but you can still, feint to one area. So if I'm coming up with Sam, even if I have my mask on, if I'm fighting up like this, and going high, I'm still, my whole focus is high on his head, and that way when I cut down, it's going to be a bit of a surprise. So even if I can't put my eyes on it with the mask, this would still work. The first one we're going to do is countering the Durchwechseln from a cut to the point of the sword. So I'll use, since I'm already facing Sam, I'm going to use his as my example. So what we just did, at one point if I go to cut against his sword, he should do the Durchwechseln, come up on the other side of my sword. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pretend I'm doing that, but I'm going to cut a Schielhau instead, and I'm going to end up thrusting him right in the throat. So instead of just cutting across, the Schielhau actually looks like that at first, except I cut long and in front of me, right? So this, actually this works really well. Now if he did end up standing in Longpoint, so if you just stood there, if he didn't do anything, I would just cut right onto his sword and thrust him here. But if he tries to do the Durchwechseln, I end up on top of his sword on the other side, but still blocking off his line of attack to me, and then I can just thrust him right in the throat without really being scared of a counterattack or the same time hit. I do need to make sure that I'm blocking his sword, so I'm not going to do the Schielhau up here into Ox, because that's not going to, because that leaves his sword exposed underneath. I am going to cut the Schielhau and end up with my hands down and plow, block off his line of attack, and then I can come in and thrust him in the throat. Does that make sense? Same attack, but now we're cutting down over his sword, onto his sword, with the point at the throat. Yeah? Questions?